Hello everybody and welcome back to the P1 Extra YouTube channel. That's right. We've got to talk about something that we think is worthy of this channel because it happened in practice, and who cares about practice? Well, we do, Tommy, because there was some shenanigans that went on in FP3. For those of you that didn't see, maybe wondering, what on earth are we talking about? There were two different incidents. One involving Lance Stroll and Lewis Hamilton at turn 5 in free practice 3. Where Hamilton was just dawdling. He loves a dawdle sometimes, does Lewis, and he was dawdling on the racing line, didn't see Lance Stroll until last minute, gets out of the way, runs literally almost to the edge of the track. Lance Stroll loses misses the braking point slightly, but very much under the control of his car before he then decided to open his steering and just veer into the side of Lewis Hamilton, causing damage to his own car, does Lance Stroll. And let's talk about that one first, Tommy, because Lance came off worse because he now has floor damage for the rest of the weekend. But he got a reprimand for that. What do you think?
Yeah, it's one of those moments where it makes Lance look a bit silly because he's got the contact. We've seen it before where people have maybe just ran another driver wide just to make a point, to be like, you've blocked me here. But all it did was just damage himself. So it's a bit of a silly, a very, very silly thing to do, really. But I don't think it was as bad as the other one. Weirdly, I do think a reprimand might actually even be the right choice there, because he's not really kind of gone in to sort of be like, no, I'm going to push you off. It's just kind of I'm going to run wide to make a point. But he has misjudged it quite a lot to sort of make contact with Hamilton, and hoping that Hamilton just got completely out of the throttle. It's more just silly driving from his point, because essentially he's risking his own car in that situation.
Yes, it brings me back to when Vettel and Hamilton came together, and Vettel wanted to make a point with the whole Baku thing, thinking he was brake tested, and he sort of swerved into Hamilton then. And there's not too many differences there, realistically. Like Vettel, I think, in that situation also misjudged because he was like waving his hand and he turned in and he just wanted to make a point. Stroll wanted to make a point, and he gets a reprimand because it's in practice, which for me is just a bit strange, because it shouldn't matter what session you're in. If you're using your car to display a message of aggression, is that really what the penalty should be? Now, let's go into the other one as well, and we can collectively talk about both and the penalty, non-penalties that were given out. Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris, two drivers you did not expect to come together, especially in free practice 3, in a very strange manner. It was just after turn 5, but it started just before, where Charles Leclerc felt like he was held up by Lando, who was dawdling around because the Ferraris were running out of sync in free practice 3 right at the end, trying to get one more flying lap. Lando did a bit of dirty air. It wasn't horrendous blocking, but it was still blocking. Lando then gets out the way. Charles, quite aggressively, wanted to make a statement as well, slams on the brakes, turns left, and makes contact with Lando. And this one was more visibly shocking. I think we were all shocked to see Charles Leclerc do it in the first place. I was quite disappointed to see Charles do that, to be honest with you. Do I think that he meant to hit Lando? No, I don't think Lance Stroll meant to hit Hamilton. I think that it's just a misjudgment of the car, but also the problem here is that they are trying to send a message. They are trying to get close to that car and push them wide or do something. So in theory, you are using your car as an aggressive, I'm not going to say weapon, because it wasn't that aggressive, but do you know what I mean? They're trying to use their car in an
It's a really silly
manner.
analogy because it's Formula One. It's like the pinnacle of motorsport. But if you were like got road rage on driving your car home, and you sort of was like, I'm gonna make a point and go really close to the other car, like that is incredibly dangerous to do, and on you if you end up bashing like your car, and you would essentially you would be to blame and would get in big trouble for it. So yeah, is that same thing, that even if you can't, even though he's gone in there and yeah, he's probably not meant to like swipe the side of the car, he has done because he's made a movement to send a message. So yeah, it's very naughty, very, very naughty indeed, and disappointing, like you say. Really, really unexpected, because of all the drivers, if you'd have if I'd have missed practice and you'd have sent me a message going, oh, two drivers have crashed into each other, someone's used their car and turned in and crashed, the last driver combination on my list would be it was Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris, because they are, good mates. We've not seen that kind of behaviour from Charles. He's not a dirty driver. I think he's actually one of the most respectful drivers, particularly in wheel-to-wheel racing as well. Like, he's incredibly good at that. He's really kind of tough but fair. So it was a big shock to see Leclerc doing it.
Now, I'm going to dive into what the steward said, word for word. Got the report here. The driver of car 16 stated that he got impeded by car 4 into turn 5, and that upset him. He then had to abort his flying lap and contended that while trying to get off the racing line before turn 7. He misjudged the position of his car and made slight contact with car 4. Irrespective of any possible intent, the stewards consider the move made by car 16, whilst not being dangerous, to be erratic and therefore issue a driving reprimand in line with precedents. I'm sorry, how is that not dangerous? He's
in a Formula 1 car.
What do you mean it's not dangerous? How is that not dangerous? Yes, they haven't ended up spearing into the wall and massive crash, but look, I'm saying this from the biggest Charles Leclerc stan out there, that I think that was deserving of a penalty. I do genuinely. It sends a message that they're allowed to do this, that they're allowed to get upset and pull a little cheeky move. And sometime, and maybe not now, but in the future, that cheeky move might end up in a massive crash. So for me, it sets the precedent that you can do that in practice. If someone blocks you and then you just want to, send a message to them, that's fine, no worries. Yeah,
I'm trying to find an incident between Hamilton and Maldonado, I believe, that there was a very similar incident between them where Maldonado kind of cut Hamilton up. Here we go. 2011. So Maldonado was annoyed about Lewis Hamilton blocking him, came around the next corner, and basically drove into the side of him. Now, I feel like that was a little bit more deliberate, but he got a 5-place penalty, and I guess it doesn't really prove the point that it was in practice. But when incidents like this,
as well? Wasn't this the end of qualifying? I feel like
it was the end of qualifying, yeah. But I don't think it should be. I don't think practice comes into these incidents. I am all for saying it's only practice when there's blocking, which is why I'm always so surprised when these drivers get so hot-headed about getting blocked in a practice session. I know there's things to do and they need to get their data and stuff, but it is wild to me that two drivers have essentially driven into other cars in a practice session because they're so annoyed by getting blocked. It's just wild. But I think he's a very, very fortunate guy to get away with it. And one thing that, this is just my opinion, but I almost feel like maybe Lance Stroll's incident, which in my opinion is not as bad, has almost saved him, because it's almost like people will think I'm a massive hypocrite here and saying but I don't think I think Stroll's might even be a reprimand and Charles's isn't. But then if they give Charles a penalty and not Stroll, it almost opens up that argument of it's not consistent because they both did the same thing, even though, in my opinion, they are quite different incidents. So I think he's almost saved by Lance doing it in a weird way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that Ferrari would have used that as an argument and gone, well, look, we've had a very similar incident with Lance Stroll and you've not given them a penalty. I think the difference between the two is that one was at high speed, one was at a much lower speed, hence why it wasn't as visibly impactful. So, yeah, I agree. I think that it was very lucky for Charles to not get a penalty there. And very unlike him as well. So I hope that that's the last time I see something like that happen, especially in practice of all sessions to get hot-headed over. And let us know in the comments what you think about this, because I know that there was a lot of people that were shocked to see that there was no penalty given out to either driver.
Think of something. We didn't actually say what we would have given, which in my opinion, I think would have been at least a 5-place grid penalty, I think.
Yes, I said on Twitch 10. I'm now regretting that. I think that maybe some kind of grid penalty, a 3 or a 5, whatever that might slot into the whole regulations. I don't know what the first port of call would be for dangerous driving like that, but it would definitely have been a grid penalty of some description. For Lance Stroll, yeah, I think that they either were both getting penalties or neither getting penalties. So that's that really. So cool. All right, you've turned it back to Matt's final thoughts. Appreciate that, Tommy, and we'll see you very soon for P1 Extra. Make sure you're subscribed for more additional P1 stuff. Bye.
Bye.